Imagine you're a 60-year-old couple with $2.5 million in your retirement portfolio. You're likely wondering if retirement is feasible and how much can you afford to spend. This scenario mirrors the situation of today's featured couple, who's been so focused on saving, investing, and growing their wealth that they've overlooked planning for their actual retirement lifestyle. In this case study, we'll dive into a real client example of Bill and Sue's financial circumstances. We'll explore various planning strategies crucial for achieving their retirement goals. We have changed the names, of course, and some of the financial information for privacy reasons. But we'll demonstrate what's necessary to bridge the gap between their current position and their future aspirations, while highlighting the range of possibilities available to them. As we begin, remember this. Whether you have $2.5 million in your retirement portfolio or a completely different amount, the steps we'll cover today apply universally. These methods will help you determine your retirement timeline and sustainable spending levels regardless of your portfolio size. We'll walk through a comprehensive process that includes assessing your current assets, projecting your future retirement expenses, and analyzing all of the different ways you can generate income from your portfolio. This approach will provide a clear picture of their financial landscape and help identify any gaps that need addressing. By examining Bill and Sue's situation, we'll showcase how to balance the desire for a comfortable retirement with the need for long-term financial security. We'll consider such factors as inflation, market volatility, and life expectancy to create this retirement plan. Throughout this video, we'll emphasize the importance of being flexible, and we'll also demonstrate how adjusting certain variables like retirement age, spending levels, and your investment strategy can significantly impact the overall plan. So let's dive in and uncover the key elements of a successful retirement plan. Whether you're approaching retirement or just starting to plan, the insights we'll go over today from Bill and Sue's journey will provide valuable guidance for your own financial future. All right, so the first thing we need to look at is Bill and Sue's overall net worth and what assets they have available for them to turn into retirement income. So if we look here at Bill and Sue, each of them are currently 60 years old and they have a net worth of roughly $2.5 million. Bill has a 401k from his current employer, and he also has a small Roth IRA. And he's currently saving to this 401k still. Sue has an IRA from a previous employer, and she also has a small Roth IRA. They have about $50,000 in a joint bank account, savings account, and they also have a joint investment account here that's worth $450,000. Their primary home, which they currently live in and don't want to move out of in retirement, they want to stay in their home during retirement, that's worth about $450,000, and they have that fully paid off. There's no mortgage on the home. So this is the current assets that Bill and Sue have, and this is what they'll be able to use to generate their retirement income. Next, we'll look at some of their current goals. So currently, Bill is making about $135,000 at his job, and Sue is making about $90,000 at their job. Now, when I met with them, they didn't hate their work, but they were starting to get a little worn out from some of the things and projects that were going on at work. So they could retire earlier, but they still like what they do a little bit. If we take a look at Bill's Social Security, his Social Security is $3,200 a month at full retirement age. And for Bill, his full retirement age Social Security is 67. Sue, she has been working, so she is able to claim off of her own Social Security benefit, which will be higher. That's about $2,300 a month at her full retirement age of 67. So those are their current incomes. And now let's look at some of their savings. So Bill is maxing out his 401k plan at work, and Sue does not have access to a 401k, so she is saving to a traditional IRA outside of her workplace plan. The next thing we need to look at are, what are some of Bill and Sue's retirement goals? The first thing that they mentioned to me is that they would each like to retire at 65. And I asked them, how do they come to age 65? Was that something they thought about because they were saving that way, or that's just how they wanted to retire? They said that that's when Medicare started, so that's when they wanted to think about retiring. Now, as we'll go through some of this, we never want to let our healthcare and retirement prevent us from retiring. So Bill and Sue each want to have a starting initial retirement age of 65. We'll be able to test that and test younger ages and older ages and see how that affects their retirement plan. When it comes to their retirement expenses, I asked them what they thought they needed in retirement to spend. With our clients, we tend to break it down into what are your base retirement expenses, things that we know we're going to need and things that we know we're going to have to spend throughout the course of our retirement. Then we also want to break off other things that are above our base retirement spending needs. Those could be things like gifting to family or charities. Those could be vacations. Those could be other assets like cars or vehicles or boats or things like that. So their base expenses starting out in retirement are about $6,500 they would need to meet their base expense level. When we look at healthcare here, we always want to put in a healthcare cost for pre-Medicare, so pre-65, and we want to test what that would look like. And then we have to put in our healthcare costs in retirement. So when you're thinking about retirement, we help our clients figure out what healthcare options are out there prior to age 65. So for Bill and Sue, we're going to estimate that between out-of-pockets and premiums for the Affordable Care Act healthcare, they're each going to pay about $12,000 per year until they get to age 65 on Medicare. Then when we look at Medicare, we have our Part B cost, which is taken out of your Social Security benefit. Then depending upon which plan you choose, you could have a Part D premium. And then there's other additional costs. So even though you've been paying into Medicare all these years, there is still additional fees and costs that you have to pay in retirement. So we put $4,000 here for out of pocket. For our clients, we usually try to budget around $6,000 per year per person for Medicare costs. So that's going to be their health care. They also have a joint car goal where they want to replace their cars every 5 years. So we have them buying a new car every 5 years and then using some of their, when they go to get a new car, they're going to sell their car, use that money as the down payment, and then take another $25,000 to help pay for the cost of care. Bill and Sue also mentioned that they have a love for travel and they have a lot of places on their bucket list that they want to travel to. So we've put in about $18,000 per year in a travel expense. And we have this ending after 10 years. We know that when we look at the data of retirement spending, that your spending is not going to just increase linearly. We know that when you're younger and more active, you're going to be traveling and doing more things. But as you age, your spending tends to fall off a little bit. So we have this ending after 10 years here. Then they mentioned they don't think that their kids are going to be able to save for their grandkids' child's education expenses. So we put this goal in here for them to be able to contribute potentially to their grandkids' education. Right now we have it at 0, and we'll be able to test different scenarios to see how much they can spend. But this part of trying to figure out how much you need in retirement expenses is a very important exercise. It's one of those things that you don't want to get wrong. You want to make sure that you get this right. In the show notes, we have our Retirement Ready Toolkit, which has a lot of different templates and examples, and it has a PDF sheet that will guide you through thinking through all of the different things that you need to think about when it comes to your retirement expenses. We also have a short video walkthrough of that Retire Ready toolkit and how to go about using that. So this is a very important piece, though. We need to know what our expenses are going to be in retirement. All right, so the next piece in Bill and Sue's retirement plan that we need to look at is we need to look at their cash flow statements. We need to look at how much money do they need in retirement expenses, how much do they have coming in from Social Security, other income sources in their portfolio, how much are they going to pay in taxes and healthcare, and how is this all going to come together? So we need to look at their global cash flow. Secondarily, Bill and Sue are 60 now, and they're not retiring until 65. So we have to make some assumptions on what is their portfolio going to be, not today, but what is it going to be 5 years from now? Now, none of us know what's going to happen in the markets or what's going to happen in the economy, but we do have to make some assumptions and projections. This is what we call the retirement risk zone. The retirement risk zone is 5 years prior to when you retire, and then the 5 years after you retire. Those are the 10 critical years that really affect how your retirement planning is going to go. So when we're thinking about our investments and our retirement, we have to make some assumptions on our rate of return. For this plan, we've made an assumption that they'll earn on average about 6.5% for a rate of return. Now, this is very important because this can skew your projections and your numbers a lot if you are, overzealous in projecting what your rate of return is going to be in retirement. First thing we have to do here is we have to look at, Bill and Sue aren't retiring until age 65. So they're still working here, which means they're still saving to their 401k. They're still getting their match at their from their employer. We have to take a look at their net worth. Today, it's about $2.5 million when it comes to their investment accounts. But if we're growing that and we're saving and we're contributing, if we see here, by the time they come into retirement, they're going to have about $3.7 million to be able to use to generate that retirement income. So this is the number that we need to use in our projections here. So when we jump back over to our summary of cash flows here, we can see that they're retiring at age 65, but they have no income coming in. Why is that? Well, in this initial projection of the plan, we have them taking their Social Security at full retirement age. Currently here, they have no Social Security income or pension income coming. Then we have their baseline expenses here, which we went over, which is about $119,000. Then we have some of their goals here. Then we have to also look at tax payments, and it shows us what our total outflows are. Now, you can see these numbers are increasing every year because we have to have some inflation adjustment for our retirement expenses, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But if we come over to the right here, we can see what our net flows are. Our net flows are the amount that has to come out of our portfolio. And in retirement, we're not always going to have the same amount of money that our portfolio needs to generate because there's all these different cash flows. When are we turning on our Social Security? Are we turning it on both for Bill and Sue at the same time or different ages? Do you have a pension? Do you have real estate income? All these different things are going to make a difference on how much money you're going to need to be able to generate. But this is the number that we need to look at as far as how much of the net flows, how much does our portfolio need to generate in annual income. So we can see it's $140,000 here. And remember, your Social Security is inflation adjusted as well. And you can see because Bill and Sue have a taxable account that's not a retirement account, their taxes are going to be really low in the initial years of retirement. And then as they jump up, you can see their taxes really start to skyrocket here to when they're in their late to mid 80s, their annual tax bill is around $162,000. And that's because when they turn 75, they have to start taking these required minimum distributions out. And that really causes retirees' tax rates to jump. And then a lot of times they end up in a higher tax bracket when they're retired than they were when they were working because of these large retirement accounts. So that's something we'll talk about in the tax planning piece. But having this really low taxes is not necessarily a good thing. A lot of times in retirement, we want to make sure we kind of smooth out our taxes because it's not about paying as low of taxes as possible today. It's really about what is our lifetime tax liability and how can we lower that lifetime tax liability. So if we see here, Bill and Sue are going to need anywhere from $140,000 to about $90,000 from their retirement portfolio. Now, how do we know with our portfolio if we have enough saved to be able to meet our retirement needs? Well, we have to do a lot of the things we've talked about. We have to build out our balance sheet and understand what assets do we have, number one. Number two, we have to look at our retirement expenses and dial that in. The third thing we have to look at is what are our guaranteed income sources? That's going to be our Social Security, pension, any real estate income. Then fourth, we have to look at what is the gap. The gap is this negative number here, which is the difference between our income flows from Social Security and pensions and our total outflows, which is going to be our retirement expenses. So that is the number that our portfolio needs to generate. In our firm, we use something called a retirement income guardrails. And that tells us how much our portfolio can generate in annual or monthly income depending upon how much we've saved. So if we come over here, this is our retirement income guardrail sheet here. And what we do is we start with your income baseline. And your income baseline is going to be your starting retirement balance. So for Bill and Sue, that was about $3.7 million. And we put that in our retirement income guardrails, and that gives us a number of how much annual income our portfolio can generate or monthly income. And if we follow certain rules, then it will prevent us from running out of money. Okay, so what our retirement income guardrails is, we put an upper guardrail on your portfolio and we put a lower guardrail around your portfolio. And as long as your portfolio is between that upper and lower guardrail, then you can keep spending. In this case, it would be about $199,000 or $16,000 a month. But if you were to break below that lower guardrail for 90 days or more, the following year, we would need to adjust the spending by 10%. This is what's called a dynamic distribution rate. So we're able to shift our retirement portfolio withdrawals up or down depending upon market conditions and depending upon how things are happening in the economy. This is going to give us clear insight that when the market is dropping, we have clarity with our clients to say, hey, the market is falling. Let's take a look at your retirement income guardrails and see if any different adjustments need to be made. Also prevents us from running out of money because we have this guardrail system. So for Bill and Sue, their portfolio could technically generate around $200,000. So if we come back over here, they only need $140,000 a year to potentially come out of their portfolio. So they're what we called overfunded. They've saved more than they potentially need. And the benefit of that is that allows you to think about, well, can I retire early? Can I retire now? Can I retire at 60 or 62 versus having to wait at 67 or 65? So we'll take a look at that as well. All right, so now that we have what we know our portfolio can generate in income, now we can test a number of different scenarios to see, does this improve our plan or hurt our plan? All right, so let's take a look at this. The first thing we want to test is, right now we have to think about, based upon our current spending and our current expenses, what are we projecting to have when we're 85 or 95 at the end of our plan value. And these numbers sometimes can get a little crazy, but when you're invested correctly and you're growing and your investments are compounding, your investments can really grow over time. So based upon Bill and Sue's scenario, and we get this kind of linear growth rate, and we know that in reality, the markets are never grow at a 7 or 8% average growth rate. They jump around a lot. But when we're doing some of these projections, we have to take a look at that. In a good scenario, linear growth rate, we're projecting for them to pass away with potentially $11.8 million. But if we get some bad market conditions, that could be substantially different. They could pass away with around $500,000 left. If we have, a really bad scenario where we have very bad growth, or we have a once in kind of a 50-year event, we can also show different scenarios with average growth rates here. So we have to test different market conditions within that retirement risk zone of those first 10 years. But we'll come back to that. So first thing we want to look at is, what if Bill and Sue retired at age 60? What would that look like, and how would that affect their retirement plan? So we'll test that. We're able to test these different ages. And it's showing us here that at age 90, they would have $6 million instead of 11.8. So they'd have about $6 million less. But how valuable is that extra 5 years of retirement to be able to do the things they want to do and spend the time with their family? For most people, retiring at 60 versus 65, even though it's less money here, would make a big difference. Then we also have to look at, how does that affect their cash flows and their investment accounts? So we have age 60 here. There's no more work income. And then we have their Social Security being collected at 67. And, when you have Social Security, you're usually collecting it in the middle of the year. So you don't get that full Social Security payment yet. But we have to take a look at their net worth, and they would be, they would have about $2.5 million because they're retiring right now, and that's what they have. And they would need between $127,000 and kind of $160,000 in their retirement years here. So if we go back over to our guardrails and we put in $2.5 million, then it can see how this changes their retirement income. So that $2.5 million could generate about $135,000 of income just from their portfolio. And that's kind of what they need here starting out. In some of these years, it's a little higher, but as soon as Social Security kicks in, then that really starts to go down. I would say that that's a very viable plan. And even if they were to retire today at age 60, they would be well okay with their retirement plan. And they would basically be equally funded because their portfolio would generate kind of what they need in retirement income. And we basically want to look at, what are their different withdrawal rates? So we have this withdrawal rate graph, and we can see, starting out, it's in the 5s and it pops up to 7. But as they turn on Social Security, that withdrawal rate really starts to drop here. And for the rest of their retirement, and when their RMDs kick in, it's kind of in the low 3s or upper 4s. So that's something that we would be okay with because we have this dynamic distribution where we're able to adjust our retirement spending. Now, this approach only works if we're able to adjust our spending. So if you say, Danny, we need $135,000 every single year and cannot drop that at all, then we would probably want to adjust this scenario a little bit. So we'll come back to our tests here, and we can see, once again, our retirement ages here. And then we can also test our Social Security strategy. So does it make sense to claim as early as possible? For some people, and we can see how that affects our overall plan. And based upon our ages, we can see, as we dial this in. Now, we don't like to use a probability of success, but it does help us when we're testing some of these different strategies. So we can see our portfolio value and our probability of success with the optimal strategy versus taking it at 62, which would be as early as possible. So it looks like it's not really affecting their overall plan. So in this case, if they did want to retire at 60, they could take their Social Security at 62, and it really wouldn't have a material impact on their overall plan, because they would, when they take Social Security earlier, that's less money they have to withdraw out of their retirement accounts. When it comes to making a Social Security decision, we have to run a Social Security analysis. We're not going to be able to do the full analysis in today's video, but we have to take a look at that. So we can test all these different things. What happens if they spend more in retirement? What if they, increase how they're invested, if they're more aggressive or less aggressive? So we can see here that increased their overall plan ending value and increase their probability of success by investing in a balanced kind of 75-25 stock bond portfolio. So we can test those things. What if we gave some money to the grandkids to their 529 plans? How would that affect it? So maybe we don't want to give $50,000, but what if we gave $10,000 to the 529 plans? We can test how that would affect their overall plan ending value and their probability of success. So we can do all of these different what if scenarios. And one of the major things that we have to look at is anytime you're doing retirement planning in software, whether it's on your own with some of these calculators, one of the major things that affects it is what is your retirement spending. Inflation adjusted just means you're going to adjust it for inflation every year until you're 90 years old. And we know that that's not reality. Like we talked about, your retirement income tends to drop over time as you get older, which is called the retirement spending smile. So a lot of times we'll run projections off that. And that's going to give us a more realistic expectation of what our spending needs are going to be. All right, so the next piece we want to look at is the tax planning piece. So we'll reset these and then look at the tax planning piece. All right, so when we look at the tax planning, we want to look at kind of what is your tax rate today, what is your tax rate tomorrow, and what is it going to be later in retirement. This is a pretty common graph for a lot of our clients. They're in a higher tax bracket while they're working, and then as soon as they retire, their tax rates plummet. And then when they hit RMD age, their tax rates really start to increase and skyrocket. So this window here, this gap years between from when you retire to when you hit RMD age, allows us to do a lot of different planning strategies. So one of the things that we're always looking at for our clients is what are the tax planning things that we can do to save as much in taxes as possible. Because remember, it's not about how our taxes are today, but what is our total federal tax bill. So we have to be measuring, how much is our total federal tax bill over retirement. For Bill and Sue, it's about $1.8 million. And then we have to look at what can we do to lower that overall tax bill. Okay, so these different lines here are just the different tax brackets. And the reason it has two tax brackets here is because remember, at December 31st of 2025, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is going to most likely expire, and that's going to increase the tax rates and also lower your standard deduction. So that's why these different tax rates are here. So the first thing we always want to look at is what is our withdrawal sequence strategy. For those of you who have a Roth IRA, an IRA, and a taxable account, you have more power about how you withdraw and where you withdraw from and how much tax you end up paying. We have to compare what makes the most sense. Do we do taxable, tax deferred, tax free? Or what a lot of people do is just a pro rata strategy. And that's not always the best thing to do. We don't want to just take a little bit out of our Roth, a little bit out of our IRA, a little bit out of our taxable account. In this case, if we did this strategy first, this would generate about $925,000 more dollars than this pro rata strategy. So we have to test all these different withdrawal sequence strategies. But for most of our clients, what they want to know is, do Roth conversions make sense for me? And it really just depends upon the client's age, their situation, and their different assets. There is possible to convert too little, and there is also possible to convert too much. So you have to be careful with your Roth conversion plan. So first thing we want to do is we want to test which of these brackets do we want to fill up. So if we fill up our 10% bracket here, that leaves us with about $188,000 more money on a tax-adjusted ending basis. Then if we continue up the different brackets, that is about $336,000 more dollars because we're filling up this gray area prior to our RMDs kicking in. So we can, keep going. And at some point though, if we convert too much, we actually can have less money than more money if we convert too much, okay? So we have to be careful here. So for this client, this is actually saying the highest and best Roth conversion use would be converting up into the 24% bracket here. Okay, so that would leave them about $1.2 million more in their plan ending value by doing that Roth conversion. And we can see that here with their overall taxes here. So if they do nothing, they're going to pay about $1.8 million in federal taxes. If they implement this Roth conversion strategy, they're only going to pay about $880,000 of federal taxes. So they're saving about $1 million in total federal taxes. We can also take a look at their RMDs. If they do nothing, they're going to have about $6 million in total RMDs that they're going to take out. If they implement this Roth conversion strategy, they're not going to have any RMDs because all of their accounts would be in Roth. So you really want to analyze the Roth conversion. It's much more complicated than this. There's a lot more factors that we need to look at. You have to look at IRMA. You have to look at your beneficiary's tax rate. You have to look at what's the break-even point on your Roth conversions. What age are you actually ahead on your Roth conversion? So in this case, as we wrap up here, this is how we go about testing the different scenarios and figuring out, is someone able to retire and how much are they able to spend in retirement? Can they spend more? Do they need to spend less? Are we able to retire 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years earlier than we initially anticipated? So as we close out here, you can see there's a lot of things that we have to plan for and look out for. There's a lot of different moving pieces. We didn't even talk about long-term care or estate planning or really dive into your healthcare and retirement. But the goal is to reassess your priorities and consider possibilities you might not have thought of before. Do you want to retire early and embark on that long-awaited adventure that you've always talked about? Perhaps focus on your health in ways you couldn't while you're working. Maybe you'd prefer to work longer, but be more generous with your family, charity, or your church. Or you might want to increase your spending in retirement and spend more. By examining what's possible, you can reflect on your current choices and ensure you're maximizing the potential of your lifetime savings and all the hard work that you've done. This process isn't about following default assumptions about work duration or spending habits. Instead, it's about intentionally aligning your retirement vision with your core values. For Bill and Sue, in our example case study couple, we've proceeded to optimize their tax strategy, optimize their withdrawal strategy, and look and see if they have saved enough for retirement. But it all begins with aligning their retirement vision to what's truly important to them. This framework, remember, applies regardless of your portfolio size. Whether you have $2.5 million or any other amount, it's about applying intentionality to your retirement planning, rather than simply following some conventional wisdom or default rules of thumb. Now, you might be watching this video and thinking, that looks interesting. I wonder if I'm in a position to retire sooner than later. If so, I encourage you to check out this other video I made. In it, I discuss the 5 reasons why you should consider retiring right now, assuming you're financially able to do so. Some of these reasons might surprise you, and I invite you to watch it for a fresh perspective on retirement timing. Remember, the key is to start these conversations early and really think about what you want your retirement to look like. It's not just about having enough money, but it's about using that money to create the lifestyle you always desired. By going through this process, you can make more informed decisions about your present actions to fully utilize everything you've worked so hard for. Whether it's adjusting your savings rate, changing your investment strategy, or rethinking your career plans, these insights can help guide your choices. Once again, I'm Danny Gudorf, the owner of Gudorf Financial Group. And if you're interested in learning more about how we help our clients at Gudorf Financial Group get the most out of life with their retirement, please go to gudorffinancial.com/get started. We're dedicated to helping individuals and families over age 50 plan for retirement. Thanks for joining me and have a great day.